Hello, everyone. So, welcome to our very first recording session, recorded session, I should rather say. Tonight, we are going to take a look at the classical philosophy, in particularly, we're going to look at the philosophers of Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. I always remember them if I think of the word spa. Socrates was the oldest, Plato then was one of his students, and Aristotle a student of Plato. So, what I'm going to do then tonight is I will give you a brief biography of each of these three amazing men, and then a little bit about the core elements of each of their philosophies, idealism and realism. And then lastly, I'm just going to touch a little bit on using or applying or kind of um, integrating these philosophies into your teaching methods. So, firstly, let's have a look at Socrates. So he's the eldest of the three, obviously Greek philosopher, and he's considered to be one of the main founders of Western philosophy. He was born in Athens, and he is mainly known through the writings and the accounts of his students, and in particular that of Plato. So he didn't leave any writings of his own, but his students did that for him. So Socrates he initially pursued a career in stonemasonry, which is what his father did, and then later on he turned to philosophy. And he's very well known for his distinctive method of inquiry, and it is known as the Socratic method. Don't know if you've heard of that, but look it up if you haven't. It's really a method that involves asking a series of questions, sorry, to stimulate critical thinking and to uncover any underlying assumptions in your students. Um, it is a method that is still used today, very well known method. Not very many people get it right, but when you do get it right, it has the most amazing outcome. And we will be looking at the Socratic method later on in the semester. It's actually quite a yeah. I find it quite exciting to challenge people with these kind of questions. So Socrates is renowned for his focus mostly on ethics and epistemology. He believed in the importance of self-knowledge, and in actual fact, he's famously known for saying the unexamined life is not worth living. So his approach to education really involved questioning your morals, questioning your ethical beliefs, um, challenging people to think deeper about what is virtue, what is justice, what is good. He unfortunately was put on trial for corrupting the youth of Athens. I think he was a bit of a rebel. Um, but and also his method of questioning, I think the it's kind of like the Athenian democracy or government found him to be a little bit conflicting and a little bit challenging, and so he was convicted of his crime, and he was sentenced to death, and he was executed by drinking a potion of poisoned hemlock, and this death is famously recorded in one of Plato's dialogues known as the Apology. Um, the legacy that Socrates leaves behind is his influence on Western philosophy. It's quite profound. His dialectical method and ethical teachings definitely laid the foundation for all future philosophical inquiry, as well as the development of critical thinking. He's I think his emphasis on questioning and dialogue is was really aimed the whole thing at aiming to uncover sorry not uncover to uncover any underlying truths and ideas, and as I mentioned earlier, any assumptions that people make, false beliefs that you might have, that you kind of get brainwashed to believe and to think. But when you really start questioning what it means, sometimes people start to realize, but hang on, why do I actually believe this? Why do I actually think this? So, yeah, he remains a central kind of like figure in philosophy today. And despite his lack of written work, his ideas have definitely continued to inspire and shape philosophical thought through the ages. And if we have a look briefly at Plato, who was one of his students, he became he later then obviously was became the teacher of Aristotle. Um, his Plato's early life was marked by a lot of political turbulence in Athens at that stage, and this definitely influenced his philosophical outlook. He was quite deeply affected by the execution of Socrates, um, and I think that led him to really start questioning democracy in general. And so, after Socrates' death, he started to travel quite extensively. He went to Egypt, um, well, yeah, mostly Egypt and Italy, but around Europe a lot. And he is known to be the founder of the Academy in Athens, one of the earliest known institutions of higher learning. Um, the Academy attracted many great minds of the time, and it, yeah, continued to operate for almost 1,000 years. So his writings are primarily in the form of dialogues, where I think he was very influenced by the Socratic questioning method, and some of his most famous works includes the Republic, um, and we're definitely going to be having a look at the Republic, especially the Allegory of the Cave, which is part of the Republic writings. He his other work known as the Symposium, in which he discusses the nature of love. In the Apology, he presents Socrates' defense during his trial when he was convicted and sentenced to death. So Plato's philosophy is well knownly marked by the theory of theory of forms, which really says that the material world is a shadow of a higher reality of where there are only perfect forms and ideas. And so he believed that true knowledge comes from understanding these forms, and that this is only accessible through reason and intellectual inquiry. So his impact on philosophy is quite profound on education as well. His work laid the groundwork for Western philosophical thought. Um, his establishment of the academy definitely influenced the development of educational institutions throughout history. Yeah, he left behind a legacy really that shaped not only philosophy but also Western culture and Western thought. His dialogues continue to be a crucial part of the philosophical canon, where he inspires many philosophers and scholars. So that's basically, in a nutshell, a little bit about Socrates and Plato. And they obviously are the founders or the fathers of philosophy known as idealism. And if we have a brief look at the principles of idealism, um, as the name says, it emphasizes the importance of ideas, of values, and of a person's mind. So the core elements of the idealistic philosophy or the philosophy of idealism include the belief that reality is mentally constructed. So, um, and that the human mind then plays a central role in understanding the world. Idealists view education as a means to develop the intellect and also to develop moral character. So their aim, or education aims then to cultivate this wisdom and virtue. So in the classroom, in the idealist classroom, this translates to a focus on teaching enduring principles and universal truths. So curriculum will often emphasize the humanities, like including literature, philosophy, and history, which are seen as key to understanding human experience and moral values. The role of the teacher in this philosophical paradigm is to inspire and guide their students in their intellectual and ethical development. So, fostering a lot of self reflection and a lot of critical thinking. Idealism promotes the idea that education should help students realize their full potential. So, it underscores the transformative power of education in that its aim is to shape not only knowledgeable individuals but also morally responsible individuals. And My belief is we need a lot more of that in our educational system. So, if we take a look at idealism in an interior design class, for example, you would then focus a lot on the ideas, on the aesthetics, what looks good, on obviously creativity, ethical considerations. In an accounting class, you would definitely take in ethical considerations as being really important. You would focus a lot on the conceptual framework that underlines all your accounting practices, um, and also look at the development of, again, the moral integrity of your students in the accounting world. For example, if you were lecturing photography, from a philosophy of idealism, you would involve focusing on the role of ideas, again, aesthetics, um, the deeper meanings of things, the conceptual underpinnings of what photographic art is all about. Obviously, creativity of photography. And if you were lecturing maths from a idealistic kind of like philosophy, again, you would look at more ideas, more of not so much concrete ideas, but abstract thinking. Again, the moral development of your students. You would maybe focus on the beauty of mathematical concepts and pursuit of the truth. Um, and again, looking at the underlying principles of mathematics. So that is what idealism would look like in a lecture room, in a classroom. Um, it's very much in a nutshell, but there's so much available on the internet to read about idealism and realism that, for me, this recording was really just to give you the core elements and to give you an idea of what a classroom following these kind of principles would look like. Okay, then I'm going to go back to my first slide, because I wanted to give you a brief biography of Aristotle. Now he's the third person in this triad, and he was a student of Plato. He's he was born in Macedonia, and as I mentioned, he was a student of Plato, and he studied at the academy in Athens that Plato established. And after Plato's death, he also took some time to travel. He mostly went to Asia Minor and to the Persian Empire. And when he returned to Athens, he then started up his own school. And he conducted research at the school, and he actually taught there for 13 years. His contributions span numerous fields. He was very much into logic, into metaphysics, ethics, politics, natural sciences. Um, he loved to also explore virtue and what does the good life mean. He was also a bit into poetry, um, and he loved to analyze principles and kind of like look at the logic behind things. His philosophy is characterized by commitment to more of a scientific empirical observations, and more of an analysis kind of approach as opposed to Socrates and Plato. He he developed a method of logic questioning. Again, we will also be looking at this later on in the semester. And he made quite significant advancements in the study of biology and physics and metaphysics. His concept of virtue ethics remains influential, emphasizing again the development of character. And also for him, it was more about pursuing a balanced life, as opposed to just looking at moral and ethical development. His works profoundly shaped more the medieval kind of like scholarly activities, and he definitely continues to influence contemporary thought in various disciplines today. Um, so yeah, he's focused on systematic inquiry and observation and empirical study is definitely more. His influence was felt in the philosophy of sciences and mathematics. And then, if we have a look at the core principles of his philosophy of realism, really just emphasizes the importance of tangible facts, observable things in the world, and he prioritized as I've mentioned before, the empirical evidence and practical experiences. So, um, realism really stresses the value of what is observable, what is measurable, and that education should be grounded in factual knowledge and practical skills. And um, learning should be about connecting the theory to what's happening in the real world, what's happening with it, how do you put that in a real life application. So the class would be more hands-on experiments, problem solving, critical thinking, um, objective, verifiable knowledge. So education focuses on scientific principles, making sure that there's a clear understanding of what is happening in the natural as well as the social world. So realists support the development of critical thinking, of skills, enabling students to analyze things, evaluate, and then to apply their knowledge effectively in the real world. And if we have a look at then uh, realism in interior design. If we go back to our 4 lectures, interior design, the realist would emphasize on the practical, the observable aspects of the design, focusing on the tangible elements and, and applying that in the real world. With an accounting class, you would focus on the empirical approaches to financial information and reporting. So, in realism, the accounting would again be more focused on observable things, measurable things, um, things that are grounded in real world context and in real world financial practice. If we have a look at teaching photography from philosophy of realism, you would be looking at again what is an accurate representation of what you can observe in the world, and then focus on the practical techniques of photography as opposed to the aesthetics and the kind of like the ideas. So students in photography in a realist class, a realism paradigm would apply realist principles to photography, and they would focus on capturing and representing the real world through practical techniques and empirical approaches. In a mathematics class, for example, again, same thing. It would be emphasizing the practical, emphasizing the observable applications, mathematical concepts, real world problems, um, and just being able to solve real world problems. So that pretty much then are the core elements of realism. Again, these there's so much available to read on idealism and realism, and at the end of the day, you'll see as we move into the other philosophies, the more contemporary philosophies, the continental philosophies, the analytic philosophies, you'll see that all of them really are grounded in either idealism or realism, or a mixture of the two and some more things added. So these really are the two sort of like foundational philosophies of all the philosophies in that we use or that we know of today. And then just to end this off, I'm going to just very briefly, if we have a look at idealism versus realism within South African education. Idealism would be where we focus on, as I said earlier, on the moral capacities of our students, on assisting them to see the beauty in things and to pursue truth and justice. And so we would want them to become ethical citizens, where they explore abstract concepts, where they are encouraged to aspire towards higher goals, higher ideals, a better life. Um, you could have discussions on different ethical and cultural ideas within the curriculum, um, but it would be a lot more focused on their character development as more than real academic achievement. So yeah, you would be cultivating thoughtful, principled citizens who are equipped to contribute meaningfully to a just and equitable society. Whereas if you were teaching in the South African context from a realist point of view, you would be, again, as mentioned, emphasizing the practical, and the observable aspects of learning. It would be more academic class. You would be engaging your students with real world problems and their solutions. Um, yeah, you would be looking at the practical applications of things. So you would look at community issues, you would look at problems within society, but then you would discuss real solutions to these and how um, they could play a role in um, yeah, making a difference. Not just, it wouldn't just be about creating the character to make the difference or creating the ethically moral caring citizen, but filling them with real world life application methods of how they can actually address the problems. So, yeah, I suppose from that you can see that the perfect lecturing would be a combination of these two, because yes, the academic side is important and you want them to understand concepts and to understand facts and to be able to apply them, but you also need to look at character development. So that is pretty much all that I would like to say about the classical philosophers, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Um, After this recording, there will be I will also be uploading your ICE, just talking to you about your ICE task again. So, but yes, I hope this helped, and I hope that you have a little bit more understanding of these two different philosophies, and we will definitely be touching on them again. Thank you very much.